Hello everyone and welcome back to another Media Moogle review here on our YouTube channel. Today we're looking at a game called Goblin Sword. This game came from Gelato Games and it is now on the Nintendo Switch. It had previously been released on the App Store, iOS, but now it finds itself comfortably here on the Switch. It is a game that at first glance might not seem like it has a lot to it, but actually there's a ton of content in this game. I was surprised myself. So while the game is lacking in any kind of real story beats, it more than makes up for it in terms of unlockables, secrets, and a staggering 89 levels for a game that appears to be bite-sized. That is a lot of levels. Not all of these levels are super unique because they take place within set worlds, of which there are only a handful of. But still, while many of the backdrops and enemies that you face are the same thing over and over again, it's at least nice that they switch up the levels in terms of enemy placement, hidden keys to find, and hidden crystals, which can actually be collected 3 in each level that will unlock a secret level if you're able to do this for the entirety of a world. So in order to see the entirety of this game, you're going to spend a lot of time grinding it out, collecting money to get the better swords and the better armor, but also searching for these crystals, which can be pretty well hidden, though most of the time they're behind an invisible wall or just off in the area of the screen that you wouldn't expect them to be. But they do add some replayability to the game, and they are a necessity if you want to experience everything that the game has to offer. But the core gameplay loop of Goblin Sword is actually pretty simple. You'll sword slash, use magic, and double jump your way through the game's progressively more challenging levels, collecting loot, which can unlock some awesome swords with some cool magical spells. Now the magic is used in this game by collecting a blue orb within the level that you are in, which will max out your magic bar and then allow you to use this more powerful ability that is within your sword. Enemies for the most part have basic patterns, but you can jump behind them, surprise attack them, and you'll also need some decent platforming skills if you want to get through some of the game's harder sections that can have you trying to avoid spiky traps or icy blocks that you can't quite get your footing on. So while there isn't anything original or that you haven't seen in other games of this genre type, that doesn't mean that it isn't fun. I felt like the controls were very responsive, the jumping felt accurate, and that the main gameplay loop was simple enough where anyone could jump in, but challenging enough if you wanted to get deep into it. Graphically, this is yet another 2D platformer with a sprite-based look that I always appreciate, but I understand many of you out there are probably getting a little tired of this art style. You've seen it in so many other games, and Goblin Sword doesn't do anything really to stand out from those titles, but I still enjoyed the look. I'm a sucker for sprites and this art aesthetic in general. I think you'll like it as long as you're a fan of that, but if you're burnt out on it, there's nothing new here in terms of enemy designs or level designs. This, like so many other indie games, relies on a throwback 16-bit presentation style, but I will say that the bosses are all really unique looking and animate well, and that the game overall has a nice, though unoriginal at this point, look. I was somewhat reminded of Monster Boy in terms of the way your character and the enemy designs are. So overall, there's nothing graphically that makes this game stand out from a ton of other titles, but it works and it's not terrible either. In terms of sound design, I enjoyed some of the slashes and the sound effects of the game itself, but the overall soundtrack could also be described as a little bit uninspired. Again, this is a title that's trying to go for that 16-bit throwback style, and there's some nice melodies and the songs themselves aren't terrible by any means, but there is one problem that irked me a bit, and that's that the songs don't really loop around properly, so you can hear a bit of a hitch every time the song ends and it begins again. It's a small gripe, but it's worth noting that I wish they had done a little bit better job of programming the music correctly. But in general, if you're a fan of 16-bit music in a medieval style setting, it's not bad. In fact, there are some brief moments of brilliance in the soundtrack, and I think there's a lot of potential for the composer to do some wonderful things in the future. So while there's not a ton of originality to the songs themselves, I do feel like they are, just like the graphics, acceptable but maybe not exceptional. But in the end, it's actually not a huge deal either way, because you play Goblin Sword because you're having fun, and the purpose of playing a video game, after all, is to have fun. There's tons of loot to collect. I enjoyed all of the different weapons. I liked seeing all of the different bosses. I got addicted to collecting money and trying to buy the next things, including armor and runes. It's a whole lot of fun just to casually go through a game and not have to worry about high production values. Goblin Sword is just a good old-fashioned fun video game, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. For more on Goblin Sword and all of our other content, please head on over to MediaMoogle.net. And if you have enjoyed our video content today, click on our big old logo right there in the middle of your screen and you'll be subscribed to all of our video content. Thanks so much for watching.